with the new earth, there's less room for false truths, false information becoming normalized, right? With AI specifically, there can be more universal truths, right? That's the biggest downfall, I think, of a society, is not keeping up with the truth. And I think when a society starts to follow the false evidence, it can get away from the universal flow, because the universal flow is always in truth.
Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of SoulPodcast. I'm so excited to bring you a new episode of Everyday Stories of Awakening. And these stories, I think, are so important because when we're on this journey, this infinite journey of awakening, it's really nice and helpful to hear other people's stories and what's worked for them, some of the challenges they've been through, and how it's shaped their lives. And so that's really the purpose of this segment. And I'm so excited to be joined by Jay. Jay is a fellow tech founder. He is a cultural strategist, a former US #1 U-17 sprinter who sold his first company at 14. He's helped scale startups like MealMe.ai to 60 million plus views, which is amazing, and now leads High Frequency Highway. Check it out on the App Store. Used in every country worldwide with over 1 billion online impressions. So his mission is to help raise the collective frequency of humanity through innovation, frequency, and storytelling. So Jay and I have a lot of things in common, I think, in our journey. And I'm so excited to dive into how his journey has evolved and led to what it is that he's doing today. So welcome, Jay, to SoulPodcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today and get into it.
Me too. So to start us off, maybe take us back in time a bit to pre-awakening Jay and what life was like then. And usually I've found in most people's journeys, there is like an initiation point in the awakening process. What was that point like for you?
Yeah, so pre-awakening, I was a very confident person. I just always had that spark of anything is possible for me. I set out to have big goals, like being the fastest and doing things online that maybe, people my age weren't really into yet, like graphic design and video editing and things of that nature. But I just had this yearning to let my creative mind be on the soft success with that. And my initiation, I would say, is a huge ego death of just losing, not necessarily losing, but just seeing a different perspective of I am almost like everybody else still. It's not a hierarchy. There's not too many levels to this. It's we are very more similar than we are different, and kind of dropping down my ego to a very, very base level. And I think that is what kind of opened my eyes to seeing we are all the same, and let's raise the collective consciousness together.
I love that. The ego certainly seems to be one of the first things that you become aware of in the awakening journey. You're like, oh, there's this sense of self that I've constructed. Is that sense of self really what's working for me or not? And so did you have any particular moment where you became aware of the ego? And how did that shift your journey from there? And was there any particular modality, like meditation or breath work, or was it pretty spontaneous?
Definitely meditation. I would say a combination of...
I had a feeling.
Yeah, a combination of meditation and information. And, that enlightenment of wait, what I've been told necessarily wasn't the truth. And I've been sitting here living in this construct of what I thought was real. And then there's this whole other dimension of what's actually real. And that's when I kind of was like, wait, that means the ego that was saying X, Y, and Z and all these things wasn't really my maximum potential. That was just this construct that was created through the different programming that I had been through till that age. So, when I got into meditation, it allowed me to tap into this non-physical vessel as well. Like I remember just being able to like be still, but I was also moving, and I never thought of reality in that way. And I kind of confined the ego to like the physical vessel. And I think that was like the differentiator for me, was like, I am far more timeless and expansive than this just physical, reality that I've been up to this point. And I can even access the different various timelines that I've been a part of, and bring that into the now. And that kind of not necessarily separated, but like evolved me beyond just the ego,
Moving into the non-linear self, more the awareness that is aware, the field experience of the spiritual experience really is that movement outside of the self is. And I had a very similar experience in my awakening, is starting to realize that consciousness is not just limited to the brain, that there is this non-linear, non-local component of it. And how did you become aware of that? I think that's something that I hear people ask me a lot, is like, how did you know that consciousness or the self was beyond the physical body? And for me, I have my own answer to that, but I'm curious what yours is.
You can feel it, like I stated, like being able for my physical body to be still, but also move like and maneuver through the world while being still at the same time is definitely one thing. And there's also this one exercise where you can basically, close your mouth and you can say to yourself, I love you, but you can hear it and you can say it. So there has to be this like overarching part of consciousness that's like beyond, because I didn't move my mouth and my ears didn't really hear anything. So what is that, right? What is that aspect of myself that I'm tapping into, where I can kind of talk to myself? If there's no mouth moving, there's no ears hearing anything, like where does that come from? And kind of tapping into that energy is how you know that there's something beyond just the physical experience.
I love that. That's such a good way of putting it. It's this realization that the thought that we have in our minds is encompassed by something else, right? And that something else is that awareness, that non-local experience. And becoming aware of that is quite a moment for many people. And that's what we're talking about, like presence. When we're talking about developing the muscle of presence, is exactly what you're speaking to, which is that stillness. But there's still, I love how you say that there's still this element of movement, that it's not static, that there's something expanding and moving. And of course, we can talk about astral travel. I don't know if that's been a part of your spiritual awakening or not, but that's very much a part of your spiritual body, a part of your energy moving through space and time, or even outside of space and time. Has that been a part of your journey at all?
Yeah, that was one of the true points of like really awakening, was having that like Kundalini awakening and feeling the energy go from my feet all the way through my crown. And then when I went to bed that night, just like slowly taking myself to bed, like through meditation, and then just rising through my roof up into the astral plane, and becoming it felt like a celestial sized being. And when I eventually came back into my body, I felt as if I was receiving so many downloads of information that it truly felt like enlightenment. That's the only way I can describe it, as just feeling like I'm shining. I have unlimited energy, couldn't sleep, could talk all day, could explain things that I never even knew and I think that is what really sparked this like new version of myself that, before awakening, wasn't it felt like I was really competitive. Like I was just a very competitive person, like didn't really care about what people thought and like was just doing me for the potential of myself. But after that experience, I felt like I was a part of a collective, and like I needed to kind of like be a teacher or like some sort of healing. Like it just allowed me to
Mm.
be like softer. I played
Oh,
football, I ran
yeah.
track. I was a very, very like opposite of soft, right? Like I was like hardcore, savage, like do what I want, like, sports guy. And then I started like becoming a lot more soft after this experience because I felt like deeper empathy and things of that nature. And I feel as if that astral projection experience kind of allowed me to tap into certain frequencies that I may not have, been open to before.
Okay, so many questions about this. So I think this will be really helpful for people to understand. So I love what you talk about, which is this softening. And it seems like when you have this expansive experience and you realize it kind of is a transition from a belief that we're all connected. Like theoretically, philosophically, it makes sense that we're all connected. But you had this moment where you knew, you experienced it for yourself that we're all connected. And it feels like, at least in my experiences, having that shift from belief to knowing of this universal, like you mentioned, you kind of became this cosmic being, that it makes so much sense then that there would be a softening, that there would be this kind of shift into a focus of service, which is really what it seems like you've been driven by since then. And that's such an interesting change. And this is also where you and I have some things in common, because I was also an athlete, martial artist, and very competitive, very like hardcore, training all the time, traveling the world. And it's also how I got exposed to meditation, but I was out to like conquer and be the best. And I totally understand that mindset. And it serves the self in a way to, they say that the first half of life is building up a healthy sense of self, and the second half is letting it all go. And so it's such an interesting and pretty radical shift. But I would love to hear more about, because I don't know if we've had too many people on the podcast that have had Kundalini awakenings. So I'd love to hear more about, if you're open to it, how that experience came on. Was it spontaneous? Was it physical, mental, emotional, clearly spiritual? But I'd love to hear anything else you'd like to share about that Kundalini awakening, because I know it can also scare some people because it can be a pretty intense experience, but it sounds like it was a pretty beautiful experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, this was when I was very early into meditation. I was meditating hours and hours at a time because I just felt like it was working. So I was
Yeah.
like, let me double down, and I remember it as it was yesterday. I was sitting in like a chair, regular chair, feet flat on the ground, spine erect, and I was following this guided meditation. And I was probably already meditating for 30 to 45 minutes before I got into this next guided meditation. And they said focus energy at the bottom of your feet, and then it just felt like this warm energy. And then they just said like basically move that energy up your legs, at the base of your spine and up your spine. And I could just feel the energy like from my feet, and I could just feel the intensity of it rise and rise and rise and rise. And I was consciously doing it, so that's how I knew it was me. But I
Mm-hmm.
was I was standing I was sitting perfectly still, but this energy was moving up my body, then up through my spine, and then just all the way through my crown. And that was the first that opened my eyes to the lie. I was like, wait, I can move energy within my body like this? What does that even mean? And like I said, that night is when I had an astral projection experience. And I think it was the combination of a couple of things. I don't think it was just the meditation, and just because I was meditating for a long period of time. I think it was a combination of that, but also the emotional state I was in at that moment. I had just got out of not yeah, I just got out of high school basically, and I was come out number one in the nation, about to go to my dream university. I had a lot of things going for me, like a lot of visions about my future. So I was like very excited about my future. So like my
Mm-hmm.
emotional state was extremely high. So I think those two things played a huge role, like a combination of those two things. And then of course, like learning about the law of attraction, meditation, I was very like gaining a lot of information and just like trying to really put myself in situations where I could learn and be enlightened, right? So I think it was a combination of like learning about a bunch of things, having a high emotional state and meditating for so long that like those combination of things was like catapulted me into this like Kundalini awakening. I even knew what that even was, right? At the time, I didn't know what even Kundalini was. After like years after, I was like, wait, this is exactly what I felt in that moment years ago. Like that's what it's called, and it was actual terms for it. And I can like break this down. I can learn more. I can try it again. And so I think, I didn't go into it in a traditional sense of like, okay, I'm gonna try to awaken my Kundalini. It was just like it just happened.
Yeah, so interesting. It's the same for me. It happened before I knew what Kundalini was, and I remember asking my friend, and I said, this crazy thing happened to me, and she was like, I think you want to check out what Kundalini is. And same thing, I was like, that's 100% what I experienced. So I'm curious, when you were out there as a cosmic being, were there any particular downloads that you received at that point in time as far as information that you'd want to share?
Specific downloads at that time, all I can remember is it felt like there was like a council of like we were people like in a circle, and I had kind of just like risen up, and they were like somewhat expecting me, and I just intuitively just started shaking everybody's hand. Like I was just like yeah,
Love
like
it.
I agree to being for the cosmic good in a way. Like I was basically like showing telling them that I am a good-hearted person and I'm gonna use energy for good reasons. That's all I can remember. And after I shook everyone's hand, I basically went back down and started getting a ton of downloads. Like that was basically my experience. And I think, after that, that's when my life really started getting timeless, I would say. Like
Mm.
after that experience, like, I really felt like I wasn't alone. Like even if I was alone, I had something or some beings like watching and taking note and like making sure of things were going a certain way. That's all I can say.
I love that. I think that's another thing that, just to pin this for people, that happens when you awaken is your relationship to loneliness changes. And because, like what you just said, is even when you are alone, truly alone, you really aren't. You can still feel this connection and you can tap into it more deeply at any time. So I've have a completely different relationship with loneliness since my awakening as well. So that's really interesting. And I know you've mentioned, you and I have talked a little bit about this offline, the role that maybe, and it sounds like maybe these beings that you met initially could have been extraterrestrials. I've certainly had contact with them in all kinds of ways over my awakening journey. Has that been a part of your experience? And if so, why do you think they are interested in connecting with us?
Yeah, it's definitely been a part of my experience. I think one theory of mine is they're future versions of ourselves,
Mm.
you know? And I think that's what made contact with me kind of an ease. I felt like it was me in a way. Like I felt like it was me, but in a future timeline. And I
Yeah.
was tapping into this because of the state and time we're in is very, very vital to the cosmic order and like the cosmic future because we're now opening our access to AI. And I think this is like such a vital point in history that we need to be very intentional on how we're creating, what we're creating, who are the leaders that the next generation is following, what information is getting out there. And, I think that's what these why they would want to be in contact is because it doesn't just affect us, right?
Mm.
It's almost like when a small insect in the forest goes extinct. Yeah, it may not feel like it's such a huge deal, but now the frog has nothing to eat, So now that frog is like looking for food in places it shouldn't be, and it's wandering off. And now the bigger thing that's eating the frog is now it's just it's a trickle effect that happens that if humans end up messing up and end up nuking each other, end up, giving our all of our consciousness to AI on accident, then it's not just affecting us, it's going and creating ripples through the cosmos. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they feel as if they should intervene in what's happening. And I feel like I've been blessed. I've been extremely blessed with abilities, right? I was young and just intuitively knew how to code. Had my first app at 14 and then was the fastest in the nation at 17. I think that's a extreme because like one, in 2014, there was already a small, tiny percent of people even making apps in
Mm-hmm.
general, let alone a 14-year-old. And then, to have my athletic background as well, it allows me to really capitalize over multiple markets and then also being able to utilize social media at the same time of doing all those things allows me to have a very unique position for expansion and to really get either a certain message out there or other things of that nature. And I don't think that was an accident that I was contacted, honestly. I don't mean
Mm.
to like be like egotistical or like, but it's just like when I just look back, I know, and I've even talked with friends like very recently, and they're like, Jay, why are you building a frequency app? Like you can take anything viral. Like you might as well create an app that can easily get to like 50K MRR. And I'm like, I know I can take anything viral. Hence why I'm doing
Mm.
the frequency technology. So that way more people can know about frequency and raise their frequency. I already know like, but if I
Yeah.
wouldn't have went through those experiences and things of that nature, I may have just created just another AI app that could, allow you to do things a little bit faster. But what is that doing for the consciousness? What is
Mm-hmm.
that doing for the world? Yes, I could pocket the money, but at the end of the day, I'm not thinking in the terms of like, okay, what's the next cash grab I can have? I think in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how can I evolve society and raise the consciousness because I'm a part of a bigger mission.
Just a quick moment to say SoulPod is a bootstrapped, female founded company built with a whole lot of love for people like you. And we just launched a new feature called Portals, bite sized journeys like the beginner's portal, the integration portal for when you're moving through big changes in your life and your spiritual development, and even soulscapes with a timer to soundtrack your solo time. You can find the link in your show notes. And if you're vibing with this episode, follow the pod so more light beings can find us. I love that. Double click on all of it. Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions was how did your relationship to your purpose evolve through your awakening? And I think you just really answered that. It was a shift from, I don't know if extractive is the right word, but it's a shift from accomplishing things for the sake of accomplishing things to being of service, like you were saying, this kind of softness shift and wanting to make an impact at the highest levels, which I totally agree with you. Those the highest levels is the level of consciousness. And if we are raising the collective consciousness to be to the point to where you realize this inherent connection with everything galactically and planetarily, then I think we all start to make different decisions and we start to orient to the planet in different ways. We start to prioritize how we evolve in different ways, whether it's technology or biologically. So it's a completely different paradigm to operate from. You certainly noticed this in your awakening, this shift in relationship to your purpose. Was there anything else related to your purpose that shifted for you?
Yeah, I mean, I really had this yearning for peace. When I found out
Mm.
about manifestation, law of attraction, my first thought was, why is there not peace on earth? If we can manifest anything, why are we not manifesting peace? Why
Yeah.
why are people still hungry? Why is there still war? Like, let's just collectively manifest peace first, and then we can manifest the car, and then we can manifest the mansion we want, right? Like, let's start with peace on earth
Yeah.
as a
Let's
collective.
start there.
Yeah, let's start there before we get a fancy car. And I think that portion, when I started to peel the layers back on why that's not already happened, I started to see how the system put things in place for people to be programmed in a way where they're stuck in fear, or they're
Hmm.
stuck in these lower frequencies that basically put you in a box of like or non-control, or your people are just subconsciously like eating unhealthy things, saying unhealthy things, listening, consuming unhealthy things because it's like trendy, or like what's in the media, or
Hmm.
it's just like what's out there. And then you start to see that this can't be accidental, that it's so negative. It's like it can't be
Totally.
accidental that
Yeah.
like all the hot songs have like these such bad affirmations, and the
Yeah.
food that we're consuming has such bad ingredients. That can't be an accident. Someone had to see, wait, if we put this in there, that means they can't evolve past a certain level. Like that
Mm.
was like intuitively. And it was kind of a shock to me on how my grandparents, or, people a generation above me couldn't see that. But, you have to give these people grace because they weren't blessed to be born in a generation where internet was there.
Right.
So it's like they
Yeah.
have a totally different programming because they had to follow what the news said, what the teachers said, what the book said. And all of those things have basically been almost intentionally designed for them to think that way, so they wouldn't go outside of the box and they wouldn't do the things that, me and you are doing right now. And I think that's where I really knew that this was like I was here on a mission, because I was blessed enough to be born where like
Mm.
you can like Google something like that was normal. But just
Yeah.
literally one generation ago, that was absurd and unheard of. Like if you were to tell my parents when
Yeah.
they were my age, when I had my awakening, that you can just like search up anything and then watch anything about anything you possibly could imagine, they would be like, that's impossible. So I think the timing of it all, and like having my awakening really opened me up to like, okay, this is a mission. This isn't just a company or just a life. Like I need to really dedicate my life to increasing the frequency, spreading awareness about the truth and who we really are.
Mm. Love it. We definitely have a shared mission in that way. And I love what you say about the generations, and it always blows my mind that even 20 years ago, meditation was still really considered out there. Like it was considered pretty woo-woo. And I remember my dad telling me that he had these old books on hypnosis and meditation that he kept. And I remember reading through some of them. And, it was like back then, this was considered very, very fringe, especially in the Western world, right? And so
Yeah.
I don't think there's a mistake that these tools, this knowledge, these experiences, luckily brought over by amazing teachers like Yogananda and whatnot in the early part of the last century. But we're so lucky that we have this access now, and that, there's more and more ways to awaken. It's not just through religion, it's not just through prayer, it's through all of these different tools that we have now that are coming together and being reawakened in us, really a remembering that's happening. And we have such an opportunity that other generations really did not have. I'm curious, Jay, if you're interested in sharing more. Going back to the ET, how have they been a component of your awakening since that big experience? I know for me, they've been increasingly active in my journey, especially in the last like even 6 months. Do you continue to have a relationship with them?
I feel as if they drop hints every now and then. I haven't had another direct contact experience lately,
Mm.
but the first experience I had kind of was such a timeless thing that I think I don't really need to get another dose
Get it.
until
Yeah.
it's time. So, it did give me this unwavering confidence because it felt like I've been to the future. I know that
Mm.
sounds crazy, but I get a lot of deja vu, synchronicities, and like hints that I'm at the right place at the right time and things of that nature. Like, I don't know if you believe in multiverse theory, but like, I swear my reality, like, it's just very aligned. I'm just in a very aligned place. And I think intuitively, that first contact experience was so, like, such a timeless thing that it prepared me for every step of the way. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, they're definitely guiding you. And on your journey, if you could boil it down to your like number one lesson that you've learned so far on your awakening journey, what would that lesson or realization be?
I think one of the like key aspects that is very just fundamental to everything is light and frequency.
Mm,
It shows that we're interconnected. It shows rhythm. It shows polarity. It shows those two concepts. I know is very, very general, but there's so many different levels to what light is, and
mm,
with various frequencies, right? So like our auras are, that's like a more expansive thing, or our biophotons, or just like the sunlight. Like light and frequency are things that I think have been such a reoccurring thing about understanding reality.
mm-hmm.
And I think the more you can understand reality, or understand yourself and have that self-awareness, the easier your journey becomes, because it allows you to work in harmony with the universe and cosmic energies.
Mm,
So I think that's like, it's like kind of double sided of like light and frequency, but also like be on the same team as the universe, right? So don't
mm,
fight the flow. Don't fight your intuition, because that is what is on the side of the universe, right? If you have this internal feeling about something and you follow that, you're going to be on the side of the universe. But if you fight that, now you're basically trying to battle what the universal energies are trying to push you to do. So I think like falling back and trusting has really also allowed me to take quantum leaps. You know, you have to be led by faith, not by sight at all times. And that goes back to light frequencies, because you only see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So if you're always basing it
mm.
off of sight, then how can you really get the most out of this reality? You're using 1% of your reality if you base everything you do off of your sight. So, you know, like one example I can give is, you know, I was going to NC State, full ride scholarship, was part of a fraternity. You know, I had a great community.
Wolfpack.
Everything,
We both went
yeah,
to NC
yeah,
State, we
go
discovered.
pack, baby. Everything seemed so ideal,
Mm.
but I had this gut feeling in 2019, and it was like, stop running track at NC State. Stop running track for NC State. Stop. And I'm like, okay. You know, I trusted. I trusted that instinct. I told my fam, they're like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Like, you're number 5 all time here. We let you join the fraternity. Like, all my money's going down the drain, my mom said. You know, it was like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm just not feeling it, literally. And
Mm.
I stopped running. Literally 3 months later, COVID hit. That's when I started my first technology company. Shortly after that, I went viral on TikTok.
Mm.
And if I would have stayed running track at NC State, I would have been training every day with no track meets coming up. Like my team was still training every day, even though they had no track meets because of COVID. So like I
Wow.
literally would have just been giving them all my time and energy
All
for
your time and
no
energy.
reason. But instead, I was able to start researching. I was able to build my own brand. I was able to move to California and start working in startups and doing my own thing and having even a deeper and deeper awakening, going out in nature, having my own free time. And it actually worked out even better, because since COVID hit, I got another scholarship because of COVID. So I ended up not having to still pay for school. So it was just like, that's when I was like, wait, I'm like, that's extremely blessed. Like that has to be something different than just like your normal story, because it's like the way that everything perfectly aligned. Like I didn't go, Crystal, I didn't go one semester with paying, because COVID hit so fast that literally once I lost my scholarship, I got another scholarship, and it was just like, here you go. Thank you for trusting your intuition. And I like, it's miracles like that where I just trust. And yeah.
And the more that that happens, that you trust your intuition, you follow it, and then you see the response from the universe or from your life and how it's led you from point A to point B in such a magical way. I know a lot of people ask me, how do you start? Because once you start trusting, it's like, oh, now I'm getting some feedback and I can lean into this. I can trust more and more. But the first few times you do it, that's like a whisper that you're trusting. It's like a little nudge. It takes some courage to really follow that. Do you think there was anything that was unique to you, that helped you follow your intuition with such faith?
I think the more I studied, the more I like started to learn about quantum physics, physiology, neuroscience, and things of that nature. And then also running case studies. So like one is like the certainty of information of non-physical phenomena, because it's hard to trust something if you've never seen it, you don't have any information about it. But once you can understand universal energies and aura and those things, like you can really start to fathom in your mind how it's actually working. So that's one. And then number two is like doing case studies. So like there will be times where I was like, I would meditate, boom, 3 days in a row, have 3 great days. One day I didn't meditate. Day was, even if it's slightly
Right?
less gratifying, I still
Yeah.
notice that. And it's like, I didn't meditate today and this is what happened. So
A
let me actually
100%.
Yep, exactly. So running your own case studies, like doing things in a way where it's almost like a scientific study. Like you're not just like doing it, but you're kind of intentionally, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna reflect on like how that went. I'm gonna remember that, and then I'm gonna do something and maybe change it a little bit and see how that works. And then like kind of doing your own case studies to see, okay, wow, when I did trust, when I did just like really just let it go and trust, this is what happened. Now I'm going to try to do the opposite of like not trusting and like trusting or like doing something else where I'm not trusting my intuition to see how that plays out. And then keeping those mental notes. And then it starts to become inevitable. Like, okay, this actually works. This doesn't work. I started off as a very skeptical person myself. And I think that was to my benefit at the end, because it really made me, try to play the system. Like, okay, I'm going to meditate 7 days in a row, and then I'm gonna go 7 days off and see, okay, what happened in those days? Was it beneficial actually? How was my mindset? How was my luck? Right? Like I think those sort of things really help. And I think also it's also a journey, right?
Yeah.
I think if you aren't necessarily like giving yourself the most positive affirmations and things of that nature, yeah, it may be hard to trust yourself, because you're literally like your subconscious mind is what's really generating your reality. So if your subconscious mind is almost in shambles, then you may not want to be trusting that with full force, but like maybe start by reprogramming your subconscious mind first. Do the meditations, do the self-awareness work, the positive affirmations. And once you can build up that repertoire, then okay, let's trust myself a little bit more.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So maybe don't like jump fully in, do some subconscious work. But I love you talking about case studies, and my background is in the sciences, and that's how we build evidence, right? Like, and so much of the spiritual journey is not taking somebody else's word for it. It's like take the concept, bring it into your experience, see how it works or doesn't work for you. Does breath work or not work for you? Does meditating every day for 7 days and then comparing that to a week where you don't at all? I really adore that framing, because it helps build the meditative muscle once you realize that like, oh, I'm doing something that's not just helping me like sleep better or get into flow more. Like it's transforming my relationship with life itself. And that is so much more of a motivator to design your life in a way that it really serves you. And that was totally my experience too, is, I noticed, like you're saying, there's days, very rarely now, that I miss meditation, but I can feel the subtle shift in my day. And the days that I do meditate, it's like everything's flowing, everything's arriving, and I'm receiving more easily than I would on days that I hadn't, even though those are very few and far between now. So I love that. I think that's a really great piece of advice for those out there that are maybe on the fence and haven't quite figured out what works for them. Run some case studies, see what works for you. But I want to ask you, you and I have talked offline a little bit about the new earth and kind of future casting what's possible for humanity from here, because we have more than enough focus these days on what we don't want in the world and how humanity is evolving currently. And I think that we need more visionaries. And I'm curious, with your mission and where you're at right now, what do you think the new earth is?
What do I think the new earth is? I think with the new earth, there's less room for false truths, false information becoming normalized, right? With AI specifically, it's like there can be a universal truth. There can be more universal truths, right? And I think tapping into that, that's the biggest downfall, I think, of a society, is not keeping up with the truth. And I think when a society starts to follow the like false evidence, it can get away from the universal flow, because the universal flow is always in truth, right? So I think with the new earth, the information is going to be vital, and making sure that AI is actually spitting out the truth is like the first step. And I think some, CEOs and executives in those, AI companies are thinking like that, which I really adore. Another aspect is healing, right? Being able to heal without any pills. That's the new earth. Longevity is the new earth. Thinking in terms of community is the new earth. I think that isolation and kind of like competitive nature is the old earth, and the new earth is collaboration and
Yes.
community. And with our time not necessarily always going to be spent on work. I know I keep hitting that AI, but it's just the future. So we got to keep talking
It
about it,
is. It's here.
right? Yeah, it's here. So I think with less time being at work, that's more time in community. That's more time being creative, instead of just doing a warehouse job or a food delivery job or Uber, right? It's like when AI comes in, I'm sorry, but those jobs are already halfway gone, especially with like Waymo and stuff. It's like there's Uber, like why would I call it Uber, right? It's like, but the thing with community is that is truly what the human experience is about. It's not
Yeah.
about the job. People have
Yeah.
like, I feel like old earth was like, you almost, people made their identities their job,
100%.
and
Yeah.
that's not what this life is supposed to be. This life is supposed to be exploring, dancing, community, and things of that nature. And I think that's where the new earth is headed, is like, healing yourself,
Mm.
kumbayaing with community,
I love
and
it.
the
As a
truth.
verb.
No,
Yeah.
literally, and the truth. Like
Yeah.
once we can get the truth out there, it's gonna be inevitable that there's gonna be peace on earth. And
Mm.
what do I mean by that, right? Because it seems much easier said than done. So I think a lot of the wars and the battles that people face are due to lack of information or due to believing false information, right?
Mm.
So when you put an imaginary border and you say, hey, we don't like people over this border, but in reality, that border is a human construct.
Mm.
So if you can, fathom that truth, or I don't like that person because of the color of their skin, it's like there's deeper when you start to realize, wait, no, the truth is they're not even their skin, they're light. There are these biophotons of light that the only way I'm even to perceive them is because that light is projecting into my eye and going into my brain. It's not like they're not even really a different color. It's like the light is just different, right? It's like different
Mm.
shades of light. So I think when we can really circulate the actual truth and stop believing into these human constructed truths, then that new earth will be more peaceful, because people can actually have an understanding and empathy because they actually understand the truth of what reality is, not what they've been fed to by the media. And
Mm.
the media has this unique way of programming people into divisive natures, because the people up top, they don't want the kumbaya, they don't want the union, because they know that they will become powerless.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like dissolving the hierarchy is what the new earth is also part of the new earth.
Love that. Dissolving the hierarchy, which is ego is always in hierarchy, whether it's less than or more than something else. The ego loves hierarchy. The soul doesn't even know what hierarchy is. It's this connection, this innate connection. And it sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is this journey from fear based thinking, becoming aware of beliefs that keep you in this fear, which doesn't serve you, and of which you're more in the material, you're more in the human experience, into love. And even though we talk a lot about love and spirituality, I feel like it's really practical too. It's like this remembering again of this connection. That connection is love. That awareness of that connection is love. The moving of energy is love. And it excites me to hear, there's a lot of possibility here. And
Yeah.
going back to AI for just a moment, because we're in the Bay Area and we have to. I hear a lot of people saying like how scared they are, and I totally understand of like, what are humans going to do when work, like you were saying, has given us meaning? How are we going to find purpose as a species? I think that's so interesting that that's the current conversation, because it points perfectly to what you just said, which is that purpose has been associated with production and work. That has been our identity, and our worthiness is how productive we are.
And that it kind of it shocks me because I think people have this, they underestimate how abundant this earth is.
Totally
Like
agree.
we really haven't even explored all of Earth and we're worried about being productive at a job. Like, would you rather be working at a job or be exploring inner Earth? Or actually, sailing deep into the depths of the water where you then find another civilization that you may not have even heard. Like, there's just so much depth to Earth that I'm like, we need to be exploring, not working. But people, they think that that should be their purpose is work, and that's because they've been programmed that way. They
Right.
lit it, and because the people, like the educational system was built during the Industrial Revolution, where prior to that, so let's say I'm Henry Ford, right? And I'm starting this new factory. People are showing up when they want to show up. They don't know how to read the instruction manual. They don't know when to take a lunch break and then come back. They get drunk and now they're with their wife, with the kids, and now I gotta go to their house. So it's like, let's make a system where we put these people through school. They learn how to become an employee. They learn how to read. They learn how to take a lunch break. They learn how to come back, and then we put them in a system where they get paid, basically paycheck by paycheck to stay in their homes. And so they got to keep coming back until they retire. That was the system. And that's the same system we're living in today. But it's not going to be, and that's why it's almost not working anymore, because it's an old system. It's the old earth, right? We're moving in a time where you can learn anything in 10 minutes. It's like you can literally just say, okay, these are the steps to do it. Boom, boom, boom. Now
Wild.
you know how to do it, right? So I think, it's been programmed that way for people to think that their job is their identity, but their soul is yearning for adventure, for love, for
For depth.
community
Yeah.
and depth. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's with AI and they're really tools of abundance that can release us from those old templates, those old ways of being. But it can feel a little crunchy as we move through that change. And I really see an unlock of human creativity. Like you're mentioning exploration, and like we'll have space to, if you don't have to worry as much, and we got to figure out, rethink capitalism too, but if you have this space to really be who you want to be, I feel like that's going to give more and more humans the opportunity to meditate, to make space for healing in their lives, for connection in their lives, for creation and creativity and community, like you're saying. So it's, I think, a very exciting vision of the future. But I've got a few rapid fire questions for you to close today. And the first one is, what is one belief that you used to believe that you no longer believe?
Linear.
Totally. And what do you believe consciousness is?
I believe consciousness is source trying to see what it is.
Beautiful. And similar, but maybe a little different, what is source God oneness to you?
Source God oneness to me. It is me.
Mm. Spoiler alert, it's you.
I'm a part of it, I think,
Yeah,
So I have my 1 billionth source particle.
love it. And along the lines of what we were just talking about, but if it's 100 years in the future, what do you hope for humanity?
Peace. As you see with my shirt, this is actually my brand. Mission Peace.
Cool.
So global peace, that's what we're striving for.
Love it. We're on that mission with you. And how can people find you?
You can find me if you want all my socials, just go to pillar pillar.io/J, just the letter. If you want my Instagram, it's the letter J and then stay clutch.
I love it. And we'll drop these links in the show notes as well. And Jay, any other closing words that you want to share today before we sign off?
Yeah, I think, you are in control of your reality. Treat people as if they are yourself and let there be peace on earth.
Love it. Double click all of that. Well, thank you, Jay, so much for diving in today, having this conversation about your awakening, sharing your wisdom. I so appreciate it. I know our audience appreciates it. And stay tuned next time, light beings, for our next episode, and sending lots of peace to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for journeying with us today, light being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul-nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.